Hello and welcome to another episode of the RainStorm with Ryan Rain, brought to you by TW Tech Productions. I am your host. I have a face for radio and a voice for newspaper, Ryan Rain. And today we're going to let the floodgates open on James Hunter. James, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, sir.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Calling you from a different area code now, so it's kind of weird.
Different area code. And, wow, yeah, so you completely uprooted from the Georgia-Carolina area.
Oh, yeah. Now in the Midwest.
Yeah, so how's the scene up there?
I tell you, after being in it for so many years, I thought I was going to come around to the same stuff. Fans are different. Crowds are totally different. It's kind of old school, so it's kind of weird coming out of the South and seeing old school fans.
Yeah.
But they're not much into the high-paced TNA-style wrestling. They're more into, characters and building the story, things like that, old school stuff. So it's actually been kind of nice.
That's cool. So, about how many places are you working now up there?
Now, about 6 places.
Oh, wow.
4 different states now, and I do an average travel about 2. So yeah, it's a little bit labor intensive to be a 30-year-old man. I used to be 18, and yeah, I can't do this no more.
So, all right, we're gonna go full circle. How did you break into the wrestling business?
Okay. I have my stepfather to thank for that. Back in 2001, on the weekends, went to my mom's, and she was like, "You'll never guess what your dad's doing." And I was like, "I don't know. What?" And she's like, "He's professional wrestling." I was like, "How in the world did he get into that?" And so I went to a show, a local place in Augusta, Georgia, Rambussen, and just checked it out and was like, "Oh man, I could do that." They didn't have a sound guy. Looking for a sound, I was like, "I got equipment, I got CDs, I got all kinds of stuff." So I broke in being a sound guy, and I kept talking to them every time at shows, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do some more stuff." They were like, "Well, we need a ref," and so I became a ref, and I was like, "Okay, I want to wrestle." And so I showed up to every show. I broke down the ring. I did refereeing, sound, and ring crew for and just paid my dues that way.
All right, so pretty much, similar to me, breaking in, just trying to do anything you possibly can.
Yeah.
To work up that ladder.
I didn't have the money. I couldn't go to a school. I did not have that money, and I was like, "Well, I got time."
So who all was wrestling on those cards at that time?
Back then, my very first show that I actually got to referee on, it was nobody that around here. It was all kind of local people. My stepdad was doing a Lex Hunter gimmick. That's where I got the James Hunter name. And his best friend was doing Max Hunter, and they were the Hunter brothers. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool." Didn't know anybody else until they brought in 2 names, first names ever met. Terry Bam Bam Gordy, and coincidentally, it was actually about 3. And he was inducted in the Hall of Fame recently, but yeah, he died 3 weeks later, and it was weird because I was on a call with him. He actually taught me how to punch. A brick wall. He put me up against a brick wall, and he said, "You want to learn something, kid?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Punch that wall." I said, "No." He said, "You punch that wall until you don't feel that wall no more." And an hour and got bloody knuckles and didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But I also met the Iron Sheik, and the Iron Sheik almost ruined wrestling for me.
Wow, and all this is in Augusta?
All this is in Augusta, yep. In a little place off of Peach Orchard Road, right now where there's a Crystals now. There used to not be a Crystals there now. And it actually became a drugstore now. is what that building is. Yeah, and Iron Sheik was just, and I know everybody's heard shoot interviews and different things with him, but he was very messed up on some pain medication and begging people for pain medication and other narcotics, and just a not good experience, especially for a 16-year-old boy.
Wow. And it's kind of, if I have my facts correct, kind of ironic that you started on Peach Orchard Road in the CSRA.
Yes.
And if I'm right, one of your last matches in the CSRA was on Peach Orchard Road, right?
Yes, it was. My last matches were for Live Wire and on Peach Orchard Road. Yep, that was it.
Wow, what a way. Full circle.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so after these shows, when did you start to branch out from there?
Well, we had a falling out, as most places do. Me and a couple others have a falling out with Mike Ellison and just kind of left that area. With the National Wrestling Federation, they were NWF. And we left them. My stepfather and his best friend decided they were going to start their own promotion. But they wanted it a little different. They wanted it to be a Christian wrestling ministry. And I was like, okay, well, as long as I'm wrestling, I don't care what I'm doing. So I went along with them. We actually took we got a ring. We built it with the rest with wood and some metal and things like that, and we made our own company, CWA, the Christian Wrestling Alliance. And that was interesting for a while.
And where was this at?
This was in Aiken, South Carolina, in Augusta. We would go around just the areas and doing churches. We go to churches and set up shows, and our shows were story-based. Mm-hmm. Matches tied into the main story that we were trying to give away with the ministry. It would be good guys, bad guys, and then the good guys come out. It's a lot of David and Goliath matches, and how the little guy overcomes the big, and then we did temptation matches where the heel comes out and tempts the good guy with a title match if he beats up this other guy, and then he decides not to, and then we spin a story around it. It was pretty. It was pretty nice. Yeah.
So was this before WFJ was even thought of, or?
This was the premise for WFJ, yes. Okay. We ran CWA for about 2 years, and had a falling out again. This time it was my stepdad and his best friend. Had a falling out over money, over some other stuff. We were a nonprofit, but we were starting to get profits in. We were starting to get popular, and it just didn't work out. Eye on how they were going to run the business. So we left. Me and my stepdad left. Actually, I kind of hung out a little bit, but he did his own thing, and then we didn't do anything. CWA was left alone for a little while, running under my. He actually turned out to be my father-in-law, but he ran it for a little while. Then at this time, we had a guy named Timothy Blackman that worked for us. He was back then used as the ultimate weapon, Timothy Blackman. And him and my stepdad started talking, and we really enjoyed the idea, really enjoyed the ministry. And we said, hey, Tim said, hey, I got some connections or whatever. And we ended up getting a ring and starting our own company. We called it Wrestling for Jesus. And it was a little different.
About what time period did WFJ start?
It was to the late 2003 to 2004 is when that started around, and it was around that time we started doing shows.
Okay, and WFJ, from what I know, that's where most of the people that I know came from, and they were bringing in some big names from like TNA.
Oh yes, we had people. We did training camps with all kinds of people from various people, from AJ Styles. We were bringing Stevens. We were bringing in some of those indie and TNA new workers, but we were also bringing in a lot of names like Greg the Hammer Valentine, Nikita Koloff, and actually spent a lot of time with Nikita Koloff and learned a lot about the business from him. He came down and did a couple training sessions with us, and I went with him to a couple different places. Actually went up to where some of the people were training around the time, and learned a lot from him. And then people like Greg the Hammer, Glacier, we worked with him. Guys, actually, when they got out of wrestling, they got very involved in ministry and Christian work. In fact, Ted DiBiase and Sting, we had them on a show, and they didn't do anything, but they gave the message. Ted DiBiase is an ordained minister, and he actually gave the message, and so is Nikita Koloff, actually. He's an ordained minister as well.
Wow.
So learned a lot from that, and it was just because they wanted to help out a Christian organization that was doing good. So we reaped the benefits. Some of the greatest in the business.
So, and you stayed with them until what, 2006-ish?
2005 to 2006, yes. We stayed with them. We did a lot of shows. When I say we, I mean the core four is what I call them. The core four of what became TWF was me, Darkness, Chris Main, and Kevin Kurgan, who at the time was some other things or whatever. He was going around with gimmicks, but we were the workhorses, basically. Us and another guy named Dale and some other people. We were the guys that set up the ring crew. We drove the trucks. We did all the back labor. And we were kind of getting tired of being not heard as it was. I helped run WFJ. I helped do a lot of bookings for WFJ. In fact, I ran WFJ for almost a year while Timothy Blackman was out. And kind of when he came back, we just felt like we got kind of shit on, and we were like, well, we can do something else. Let's do our own little thing. We didn't leave WFJ at first. We just kind of did our own thing. TWF started as videos. We were having some fun, started recording some just random videos and acts and things like that. Well, we had a website. It wasn't really looked at as very churchy, so the people that knew us used that against us, and they said these guys are demonic, these guys are satanic, these guys are not fit to be a Christian organization. And so we were actually approached about it and were asked to stop. At the time, you 17 or 18-year-old bunch of guys, when you tell somebody to stop, we just want to do it more.
Exactly.
I did, screw Tim, screw WFJ, screw all that, and we will just do our own.
Right.
So on July 4th, 2006, we had our own show, and we called it the Throne Wrestling Federation.
Right, and which came first, TWF or the band?
TWF or the band?
Yeah, Throne of Anguish.
The band. Throne of Anguish was a band owned by a guy named Daniel Edenfield, or I forgot his last name, but Daniel is what we all called him, Daniel or Daniel. Him and a guy named JD had a band with Kevin Kurgan, had a band called Throne of Anguish. He wanted to partner with us to come up with the wrestling organization. He would give us the name and help us use the name. And we thought TWF Throne Wrestling was unheard of. Nobody was doing it. I think the only other TWF that we looked up online was the Thumb Wrestling.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah, we're not that. But he actually did shows. The Throne of Anguish band actually did some shows for us. In fact, our first show, and first 3 or 4 shows, we had the live band perform. He would perform during intermission or before the show or after the show, and it went okay. It was never received well by the fans because I guess the type of the music it was. We loved it. It was hard rock, heavy metal music, but not what some of the fans wanted, and it didn't work out with some of the shows. And I'm not really 100% clear on why they stopped doing it with us, but it just went away.
And that was Thigard, right?
Yes, it was Thigard. He wrestled for us in TWF. Yes, we taught him how to wrestle. That was our exchange. He helped us out, and we taught him how to wrestle. And he wasn't actually that bad. Had some good matches with Solitude and some other stuff like that. Yep.
I remember that being one of the first memories I have of TWF. Him versus Solitude with the flaming kendo stick, actually.
Yes, and I actually ran out and lit that kendo stick on fire because Solitude couldn't get it to light on fire.
Oh, man.
I'll never forget that. That was one of my favorite TWF stories. It's funny you said that because Joe was trying to light it on fire, He had soaked it in lighter fluid. And lighter fluid and with wood, it just soaks up. So he's out there halfway through the match trying to get it to light on fire. It wouldn't light on fire. I'm in the back looking through the curtain. I'm like, the whole spot that we were working out just not working. I'm like, oh my God, what can we do? There was a gas can right beside where I was standing, and I was like, I just on instinct grabbed it, ran out the curtain. I was a face at the time. I ran out the curtain. I poured the gas all over the and I was like, here you go. And Solitude looked at me like, oh crap. He lit the kendo stick. It engulfed in flames, and then even the ground lit on fire. He hit Thygard with the kendo stick, and the top flew into the trees. And the guy that owned the property at the time, Freddie, one of our refs and co-owners, he flipped out and ran out there and sent somebody out there to. Hilarious, but it was good. Crowd popped off the hit. They thought it was awesome. It was the best impromptu thing we could have done.
One of my favorite memories that I wasn't involved in, being I think my second show ever, seeing that it was great. It was great. Yeah. I loved it.
We did a lot of things out in that yard that were controversial, to say the least. But it was great memories. Great memories.
Oh yeah. So TWF's going, and it's pretty good.
Yep.
Talent from all over the place is trying to get on.
Yeah, we actually, the reason why Talent came, a lot of people didn't know this, is me, Chase, and Kevin, and not Madeira at the time, Chris Main, but we all helped out another organization start. We were working with WFJ and TWF kind of, but we had really left our WFJ kind of to the wayside. Right. We ended up meeting Sergeant Solitude and a guy named Amazing Velvet, or Dynamite Dave. We met them in our WFJ time and had contacted them during TWF the early days. And mutual friends and things like that. They came and did a show for us or whatever, but they contacted us about doing an organization in Charleston. Old school championship wrestling, and we were the first roster, part of the first roster and the first factions in that organization. Did their first 2 or 3 years of shows, and we actually through that organization got a lot of our talent exchange for TWF, because we would tell them about it. Solitude would brag about, hey, come out to this yard in the middle of nowhere, and they have a whole lot of fun, and know what they're doing. It's not like a backyard show. It's a professional ring and these are professional trained guys. Like, they're just trying to have fun. So people would come from all over the state for no money and just come out and have fun.
And that's what was cool about it. There was just so many different people from so many different places.
Oh yeah.
And Solitude was such a nice guy to begin with.
God, so yeah.
So It was really fun to do that.
Yep.
And then, including all the people that are wanting to come in, you guys were also training people at the same time, mixed in with all those guys.
Oh yeah, we had so many people came up to the shows at first and were like, can y'all train people? And I was one of the head trainers for WFJ because I was the one guy that showed up all the time and had been there for a long time. So Darkness he wanted to do training, but he wasn't sure if he could. He had only been in it a couple years. He asked me if I wanted to do some training, and I was like, sure, yeah, we can train some of these guys in the yard. He was like, I don't know when. We didn't really have a training schedule. It was just kind of whenever we could get up there, sometimes before the shows. It worked. We were sporadic. We did some one-on-one time with some people. But yeah, we had almost about 10 to 10 people that were training, I would say, or wanting to learn.
I think maybe Ken might be the only one still active.
Ken Lee, yes. At the time, he was. He went through a couple of different names, but at the time, he was Vincent Sykes or Vincent Chambers, one of the two. And But he was one of the first, and he was a prospect from the get-go. Well, the first time he got very young, but he really took to it like a duck to water, like the saying goes. And me and Chase and Kevin both were like, there's some potential there. There's a lot of potential. And we'd seen potential in a lot of people. But we were like, he's young, and if he sticks to it, he'll be great in 5 or 6 years. And we were exactly right. I mean, Ken is going all over the country now and doing really, really well. And I'm very proud of him. He's happy to say he's one of my good close friends, and I'm happy to say that he really stuck to it, and he really put his nose to the grind and is working for it. And I hope he goes all the way to the top. I really do.
What was one of your favorite things about TWF?
My favorite thing was the fact that we could, even in the setting that we were in, people that we had, we could outdraw the local high school football games sometimes because we were so entertaining because we gave the fans exactly what they wanted. A lot of promotions don't do that. They don't really focus on fans. They focus on the wrestlers. We didn't care. The wrestlers that were there, we didn't care. We wouldn't come up with a card until 2-3 minutes before the first match. I mean, because we didn't care. If people wouldn't show up. We were putting stuff together as the show was going on, but it wasn't stressful. It was fun. At the end of the day, it was fun. And the day it stopped being fun is the day we stopped doing it.
And that was January of 2008, I believe, was the last TWF show.
That was the last. We had a couple things in between. We had partnered with a couple people. We had done some other stuff. 2008 was the bitter end, and a lot of people don't know what really happened as far as why we just stopped doing it. And I don't know if you remember, but we took a break for a minute at one point. We had a meeting, all the guys that ran TWF, and Darkness and Chris Main were getting a push in Cornelia, Georgia, at a place called the NWA Wildside. NWA.
Right.
And they did Friday shows and Saturday shows, and we did Friday shows. So we had thrown out the idea of just stopping TWF altogether. Me and a couple others did not like the idea, said, well, we're not going to, there. We can run it. We'll be fine. We did for a little while. We ran it for, I want to say 4 months, 5 months maybe. I'm not really sure. And then it kind of just filtered off. People stopped coming. People didn't really care anymore. It just kind of went in their own ways. I was fixing to have a baby, so I kind of got out of there, and it just, without the cornerstones of the organization, it just went away.
Right. And yet, those two left, and all the outside guys, they pretty much stopped coming for a while.
Yes. They were doing the same thing. The fun had kind of wore off, and they were just like, you know what, we're focusing on the places that are paying, number one, and number two, somewhere that they can make something more. Because TWF wasn't a place where you came to make yourself. It was a place where you honed your skill. You got to do it in front of a crowd that loved you no matter what or hated you no matter what, and you didn't have to worry about being that sharp, crisp professional. You could work on it. Really did.
Right, and also I thought another factor in the whole thing was it was the winter months.
Yes, it was. That was
not a lot of people wanted to wrestle outside at night.
No, that was always a problem for us. The winter months were never easy. I can only tell you that there were maybe 2 shows that we did while it was bad weather. We did do one rainy show, and I don't know if you remember that. That was a huge battle royal that nobody really cared.
That was fun for a while.
That was really fun. We did that, and it was fun for the first hour, but after about 2 hours of playing in the rain, we were done.
I remember there was just these 2 guys that randomly showed up that claimed they were from JCW. I don't know if you remember them.
Yes.
And they wouldn't get out of the ring.
Oh, they wanted to work.
Anyone who slid in got their head stomped.
Yep.
Until Outlaw brought out the barbed wire.
It scared them all off.
They weren't hardcore anymore, and we finally got to get in the ring. Those guys. And they ended up coming back later when it was dry, and one guy broke his nose giving a tombstone.
So you remember more than me. I was in the house laughing at the people playing in the rain.
Well, this was a different show. They came back a couple weeks later because they wanted to work an actual show.
Oh yeah, because they wanted to. Because they didn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we were like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, because that was the mindset. If you show up, you have gear. All right, you're whatever.
Even if you didn't have gear, sometimes.
Well, there were a lot of people that just didn't have anything resembling matching or just went out there.
Yeah.
And that was the fun part in it. But another factor I always thought was we just moved to Walterboro, pretty much.
Pretty much, we had partnered with RWE in Walterboro, and most of us were trying to get RWE off the ground. We were trying to do what we had originally done in TWF that we saw was going away. We said, okay, this is another organization that was really small that we wanted to really push, and they just needed training. We got people like Matt Crosby, we got people like the Destroyer, we got Bobby Cook, we have people like that we actually were helping, and a lot of people have potential. Matt Crosby is one of the ones that we saw potential from the first show we were there. And it was like, you guys can work. Let's work with these people and see what we can do.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. We all kind of had pretty much moved to Walterboro.
Yeah, it was the core group of us that really wanted it. We were the ones that moved because the Juggalos, they didn't come with us.
No.
The fans, they didn't come with us. It was the people who actually wanted to wrestle were the ones that moved down there.
Yep.
And I think that showed a little bit of dedication there to drive 2 hours. We were the ones now driving 2 hours for free.
Yep. For free.
Yeah. But it wasn't outside, it was in a garage.
And it wasn't a 14 by 14 ring. So that was a negative too.
Yeah, and it was about 2, maybe 3 inches off the ground.
Yep, if that.
Never seen anything like that at this time.
Oh no.
Walls lined with action figures, promo pictures.
The owner of RWE at the time, his name in the building was Chris Bowers, TCB. He did really well, but he was a very big, and he'll tell you this right away, and I'll tell him to his face. He was a huge wrestling mark, but he loves the business. And I tell you, out of a lot of people, that man really loves the business. He really does.
Oh yeah, he may not have the perfect mindset when it comes to booking. But love for business, 100%.
And he does try to surround himself with people that capitalize on his faults, like some of the booking, some of the things like that. And he tried his best with that stuff. And I do. I've supported him before, and we've had our issues back and forth. But at the end of the day, we've squashed all that.
Right. So we're in RWE.
Mm-hmm.
We start out in a little garage, and we end up moving from a pub, which was pretty big, to an actual rec center with them.
Yeah.
And once we started moving, the people all came in.
Oh yeah. Once we got to the pub, we started getting people from Columbia. We started getting people from all over South Carolina, and it was good talent. It was great, but it really left a lot of the people that we were trying to build up kind of behind. And we didn't think about it at first, but after hindsight, maybe we should have, focused. But we were trying to put on a better show. At the end of the day, we were looking for the people with talent. We were looking for the people they're good. They had asked me to come in and help them out with getting people in and moving stuff. Same with Solitude. Same with other people. And we did. We found a lot of good new talents, though. Big Game James and he's actually been working with WWE Developmental recently, but he was one of the orders for us. Right. And he was a really good talent, but even back then, he wasn't polished.
Right.
So it was good for him to come in and show a big old huge guy, and because he sold it right off the bat.
Right. And then you had the veterans, if
Mm-hmm.
you will, like Johnny Blaze came in and worked
Mm-hmm.
with someone like Big Game James on a regular
Yep.
basis. So it was good to have that. Meanwhile, the guys that
And
made that original transition were kind of just getting pushed to the
yeah,
side.
yep, it was. It did happen. That's one of the times that I was glad to not be in creative or major booking because I was not agreeing with some of the stuff, but I was at the point just ready to wrestle.
Right. And it ended up, in November, I believe it was, where it was pretty much final. It finally came down to a split.
Yeah, it was November of 2008, I believe it was. I actually was not. I was on a show. I did a little program with a worker called L Train. Me and him did a couple of good bit of stuff. We did a hardcore match in the gym we had moved to, and then that was my last show there for a little while. I took some work and way, but the very next show, I got a phone call from Matt Crosby saying that they had the commission show up on them.
Right.
The South Carolina Athletic Commission had shown up. I don't know if they got a phone call at the time. I've heard all kinds of different things, but we were making waves that a lot of people didn't like, so I didn't put it past somebody to call the commission on us.
Right.
But they showed up. The story that I have heard parties, and I'm just going to say this out there just because I've heard it from TCB, I've heard it from Matt Crosby. When the commission showed up, it really threw everybody off guard, of course, like it does anywhere. When they walked in the back and they asked, all right, who's in charge? A story that I've heard is TCB did not step up and say me. Matt Crosby stepped up and said, I am.
Wow.
And I've heard that from TCB that Matt took over and he just stepped in and did that, but I've heard both sides. I wasn't there, so I don't have an opinion, but I know at that point that I bet you the commission caught everybody off guard. Nobody knew what to do, and whatever happened, happened. But it was at the end of the day, it was a disagreement from the people in charge at the end of the day. Because whoever, whatever, took ownership or didn't take ownership, and that just pissed everybody. Because at the end of the day, if the commission shows up, the people who don't know about this is South Carolina Commission shows up and you're wrong, you get fined. Whoever's in charge gets fined, and that's it. And people have to pay out of pocket. And it's usually not hey, you mail this in. It's usually you pay the guy that's there, or you give him a check or something.
Yeah, the Athletic Commission does not play around about a lot of stuff.
Not at all.
I remember we were the first match. It was me and Kevin versus Cruz and Coleman when he was doing that weird mask gimmick that they wanted to do.
The Mark Question. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. And they came in during our match, and we were match 1.
Yep. And they showed the showdown from what I heard, right?
Right. Well, they let match 2 go on because I guess they were trying to figure out who owns it or whatnot. Yeah. And probably the worst person to send out there, I believe it was Matt Graves versus Brett Taylor. Probably the worst person to send out there while the Athletic Commission is out there, considering he was only maybe 15 or 16 at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember coming back to the back, and it was very rushed, and get your stuff, get out the building.
Yep.
And I was like, what? We wasn't that over. I mean, we were over, but wasn't that over that we need to get out of the building now? What's going on? And then that's when I think it was Johnny Blaze like, no, you don't fucking understand, idiot. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
All right,
get the hell out.
Yeah, get out. Athletic Commission's here. Go out the back door. Find your way around. I was like, oh. And that's pretty much all that I knew about it. So
yeah. Well, that was, like I said, I'd heard hearsay. Well, and Johnny's, I've talked to Johnny about it since, and ever since FCW, me and Johnny have had a weird good relationship. He's a juggalo. I don't care for juggalos that much, but I walked up to him and just said, "Hey, I don't like juggalos, but you're okay." And ever since then, we've had a good run. We had a couple matches in FCW together, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, FCW, that was another moderate place. Good for some, others.
We had one of the most unique tryouts, and I tell this story every time I see the two people involved. But we had one of the most unique tryouts for FCW back in I would say 06, around when 05, when TWF was just starting. We knew the people that would go out to Flatline, and we were like, and back then it was FCW Flatline Championship Wrestling. It wasn't the Flatline that it became, but they were like, yeah, sure, just go, have a match. It was me, Darkness, and Kevin Kurgan doing Cam Wee at the time. And we didn't know. They didn't know what we were going to do. They didn't have our music. They didn't have stuff that was going on. And then they said, well, just go out there. So we started thinking about it. So what our idea was, and I've never seen a match start like this ever to this day, we took Kevin Kurgan, me and Darkness, and we threw him through out from the back to the outside. The fans were like, well, no music, no nothing. The fans were like, well, holy crap, what's going on? No referee in the ring. We commenced to taking turns beating on Kevin all the way around the ring until we got him in the ring. And then they rushed a referee out there, and we had a three-way dance impromptu. Did a bunch of dives, did a bunch of things to the outside. Ended the match with us, I forgot who won the match, with taking Kevin back out, throwing him back out in the ring, and throwing him back out through the entranceway. Well, after that match, we got booked on FCW show for every show for like 2 years. A lot of fun with that one.
And we tried to there, like we did Walterboro and
a lot of people did. They're booking people. Chris Wiggins and some other people were happy with people that came from a backyard setting. They necessarily didn't look at TWF as a backyard setting, but they were trying to put on a really good show, and they were doing a pretty good job of it, even in the early years. And they just were very leery about some of the people they were put on, because we had to do that. I mean, they weren't going to give us any other thing but that. We showed up with our gear. They didn't invite us. We showed up and we're like, hey, we're 3 wrestlers. We want a shot.
Right.
And they were not. We were from there. We were Johnny Nobodies. I mean, they didn't know us.
Right. I just remember, guys like me, DIE, Coleman, Paige Eriks, all tried at one point, and we were kind of turned away.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
So.
And it actually was funny that it was funny that it eventually ran into a show of TWF versus FCW.
Oh, yeah, the Invasion, which was, I thought, was great.
That was probably one of the most combined efforts that we had done at the time with any organization that paid off 100% in the end. Right. Because we had built that for a minute, and we built it in the yard, we built it at FCW and Patriot Point, and we had almost our entire yard show up for that show. And so our crowd was even an Invasion crowd. I mean, they were back and forth and back and forth. Oh, yeah. Favorite matches with Brandon Parker at that show. That was really awesome.
And to be able to get people from the Valley to leave the Valley, leave South Carolina,
to go all the way to Evans or Grovetown, Georgia. That was,
that's an accomplishment in itself.
Oh, don't worry. A lot of people don't know this. We carpooled a lot of those people. We put people in vans. We had people that were vans deep. Oh, yeah. We brought people.
Oh, yeah. And the atmosphere of that show was just
it was great. It was awesome.
And
it was really good.
Something I don't think can be recaptured. Maybe, but I doubt it.
We tried. Yeah. We tried to do it. We talked about it, doing it again, and it never really worked out. The hype wasn't there anymore.
Right. So, FCW, guys, it pretty much runs its course.
Yeah.
So during all this, we end up back with WFJ somehow.
Oh yeah, I remember that phone call. Very, very, very. Oh, that was so bad. So we had cut all ties off with Timothy Blackman. We were done with him and all the shenanigans and different things like that. And at the time, we were a relationship with him because WFJ was starting to book people and pay people, and we heard wind of that. So we were like, hey, can we come back? And we're talent now. We're actually been all these places. You know, can you give us gas money or something like that to come instead of doing the show for free anymore? And he didn't want to at first. It was back and forth, whatever. And then we actually didn't get a phone call to come back to WFJ. We had introduced him to the people that did the WFJ documentary. And a lot of people don't know this. This is a whole other button, but the WFJ documentary was not, or the TMoney documentary is what it became, but it was not supposed to be about TMoney or WFJ at all. We were contacted as TWF. Chase Darkness was actually contacted by wanting to do, they had heard about us somehow through YouTube or our website or whatever, and they wanted to do a piece on independent wrestling and kind of like a starter-up company and like just, you know, somebody digging down. They saw how we were in a backyard setting but very professional looking, and so they were interested. They came down all the way from, ironically, Wisconsin. They came all the way down and videotaped about 2 of our shows. I don't know if you remember that, but we had like a full-on crew. It was a full-on like film crew that came and recorded a couple of our shows, and they were very interested. And they asked us at the end of the second show, I think, they were like, so where did y'all come from? And we told them, explained the WFJ story to them and explained all that. And they were like, really? They were like, is it still around? And I was like, yeah. WFJ is actually just starting back up, it kind of, sort of. I said, but the guy that runs it lives right down the road. And they were like, oh, well, can we talk to him? And I was like, maybe. And we kind of still kind of patchy at that time. So we got a hold of him back then through MySpace. And he said, sure, no problem. I think Darkness and Chris Main took him down and took the guys down and took. Well, I don't know how that conversation went, but I believe from talking to different people that once they heard the WFJ story and they heard that, it became more intriguing to them than TWF. They still liked the fact that we branched off from them and that we were kind of a subsidiary of them and whatever, but they really were compelled by the WFJ story. They left, came back, with us, talked to us. They're going to film another show. They came back, never got a hold of us, and got a hold of Tim Blackman and started going to some of their shows and recorded theirs. We never heard anything from them, didn't know anything about it. Got a contact later saying, hey, we got the new trailer is going to come out. We want y'all to see it and see what you think. When we read the tagline that it was Wrestling for Jesus, the tale of shit hit the fan. We were pissed. I mean, it was like, what? They didn't even get any of it, and they made it about the one guy that it was his fault that it went under, and they make it about him. And I mean, it made us livid. Some of us laughed about it and thought it was stupid, but for some of us that really put the hard work in WFJ and really put the hard work in TWF, because it just took all that premise away.
Right. And if anything, I feel personally that they made TWF look very bad.
Yes, they did. They made it look very like a backyard, like what everybody perceived us as. They made it look like what we were perceived as, a backyard group that didn't really care.
And outside of Chase and Madeira, they interviewed some of the worst possible people.
Oh,
for that spot.
Very much so.
Yeah,
And
I remember
for the
them
record,
coming.
I opted out not to be interviewed, so I'm kind of glad I did.
Yeah. And that was, and then the next time we would actually be featured would be the Matt Cruz benefits show, when it's only
Yes.
just clips, pretty much, no interviews, still focusing on them two. So
very much so. It was. I was seen, and so was Darkness seen outside of that show or around that show, and that's when Darkness was interviewed at one point, and I was in the ring when they did a show, the clip of TMoney talking to Matt Cruz, and that's one of the only ways you can see me on that documentary, because they cut all that stuff out.
right.
And I'm not mad about the way I'm just upset and disappointed how they did it.
Right. All right, so fast forward a little bit.
Okay. Sorry, we went backtrack on that one.
Yeah, spiderwebbing here. So
it's okay.
RWE splits, and we pretty much take the new path of starting another new promotion,
Mm-hmm.
which would be ZPW.
ZPW, or what it became, Zenith Pro Wrestling. RWE went another way. It went to started partnering up with a group up there, CWA, not to be confused with the other one. It's Carolina Wrestling Alliance or whatever. They went out and partnered with them. They became RWE Warzone, and I never did any shows for them. I never did anything with that. I went with Chris Bowers because I wasn't there again. And so he was like, I need your help. And nobody else was wanting to help me with booking or getting people or talking to people. And I was like, yeah, sure. I got the whole and all this other stuff I can contact. Not a problem.
Right.
And went with the ZPW, and we started an organization over again.
Right. And it was fun for a while.
Was, very much so.
But there were just some people there that obviously they didn't get picked up by RWE. The original RWE, they were pushed so far out that they weren't even in the ring. But now here they are back in ZPW, back in the ring, because there's open spots again.
Oh, yeah.
And some of those people just rubbed people the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, more than just rub. I could agree with that.
Yeah. And
there was some talent in there, or I wouldn't say talent to some of them, but there were some people in there that, I don't know. It just, questionable is one of the nicest words I can say.
and once again, they're back in the shed, or just setting the ring up outside, because I believe he purchased an old WFJ ring.
He actually did. He when WFJ fell again in 2008-ish, he was getting rid of his ring. I didn't know. I'd heard through the grapevine that Timothy Blackman was selling his ring. He had another ring that he was going to get, or maybe he didn't really know, but he was selling the original ring. Now, the original ring, it was a high spots ring, put together very, very well, 18 by 18, one of the best bumping rings I've actually been in this business. And I told Chris Bowers, I said, you are an idiot if you don't buy that. That is gold right there. And I think he didn't even sell it for maybe a quarter what he purchased it for. Wow. And he bought it up, and he was like, yeah, sure. And he went and spent the money. He got a new canvas. He got a new turnbuckle pad. I mean, he turned that thing into a beautiful ring again.
Oh, yeah.
And it was nice bumping into that ring again.
Yeah. I think we actually worked in that ring one of the 2 WFJ appearances I actually made.
We did,
Columbia.
me and you. Yes, we did. And that was right outside of Columbia, yep. Right around, I don't know the name of that town. I don't know what it was, but yeah, we're out in the Columbia area. But yeah, that was a fun match. That was back when I still had long hair, and that was really weird to be in the locker room, because it was me, you, and a couple other people I didn't think we were going to be in a WFJ ring again.